Hey everybody out in YouTube land, my name's Mike and I love guitars. In today's video, we're once again going to be shooting out two Van Halen guitars. We're going to compare my 1997 Peavey Wolfgang Standard with my friend Cliff's Musicman Axis clone. Let's do this. At the end of my last EVH Shootout video, I made the joke that if I found a friend with the Musicman Axis, I might make a third shootout video. Well, recently I remembered that Cliff kind of has one. I remembered that a few years ago, Cliff told me he got a guitar off of Craigslist for cheap. The guitar was so cheap because it was a homemade copy of a Musicman Axis, and Cliff bought it because he's a lifetime EVH junkie. When I remembered he had this guitar, I sent him a message on Facebook and asked him if I could borrow it. He said yes, and here we are. I was most curious to see if the guitar really was homemade or if it was a kit build of some kind. There are no visible logos on it anywhere, so after getting Cliff's permission, I pulled the neck to check the joint. Not finding any logos in the neck joint, I even pulled the pickups to see if there were any kind of logos or markings inside the pickup cavities. While I didn't find any logos there either, I did happen to find a logo on the back of the bridge pickup that said GFS. After Googling GFS, that led me to a site called GuitarFetish.com. If you're not familiar with it, Guitar Fetish is a site that sells, wait for it, guitar kits and parts. So even though they don't currently have an Axis kit for sale on their site, if the pickup comes from Guitar Fetish, I think it's reasonable to assume that the guitar is one of their kits. Mystery solved. The guitar certainly feels decent, but absolutely lacks high-end finishing that you would see on an actual Musicman Axis. The clear coat on the fretboard is clearly wearing through, and there's even a couple of thin spots on the body itself near the pickups. The hardware is made up of cheaper options that you might find on any number of import guitars. Those parts include a licensed Floyd Rose tremolo and Grover-looking tuners made by a company called Jinho. An interesting deviation from the original EVH design includes a tone pot where the original Musicman only had a volume and a 5-way rotary selector instead of the traditional 3-way toggle switch. When compared to the Peavey Wolfgang, Cliff's Axis clone falls short in build quality in several ways, but considering it only cost him about $300, that really shouldn't surprise anyone. Tonally, the guitars are somewhat similar, but the Peavey definitely has a darker sound than the more trebly kit build. Personally, since I tend to prefer a slightly darker guitar tone, I absolutely like the Peavey sound more. I admit that I've always been more than a little tempted to give a kit build a try, so it was definitely fun to check this guitar out. The upside of a kit is you get to pick every single piece of your guitar so you can get exactly what you want. There are even a few companies that make pretty nice high-end kits, so if you know what you're doing, the quality can actually end up being pretty high. The downside is if you ever decide to sell it, you will never get your money back out of it. I mean, when was the last time you saw someone pay top dollar for a used kit build? So what do I think about this particular guitar? Well, I think it's an inexpensive and serviceable guitar that does exactly what it's intended to do for Cliff. And that's channel his inner Eddie and shred at a much higher level than I'll ever be capable of. I won't be getting rid of my Peavey anytime soon in favor of this guitar, but Cliff is far less irresponsible when it comes to buying expensive guitars than I am. And just like that, we are done with another video. Hopefully you had as much fun as I did checking out this mystery guitar, and be sure to check back soon as I am constantly buying new guitars or borrowing them from friends. Blueberry burst, silver burst. I can't decide, man. Oh, hey! Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And remember, keep playing your guitars.